Hey everyone, this is Tiqqle, and in this video we're going over the Warlock changes in the latest build of Shadowlands, which changed what was already changed for Affliction even further, well, and reverted a few things. And then Demo and Destro, which weren't modified really at all in the beginning of Shadowlands, is now giving some attention to those two classes. And as we all know, and probably more or less don't like or do like, Destro is getting a savage adjustment that might make it totally different from a PvP perspective in Shadowlands. So let's go ahead and go through all the changes. We're going to go ahead and start off with Affliction, because Affliction, if you didn't already know, and I'll put down in the description below my videos I've already made for Affliction, Demo, Destro. A lot of them aren't changed other than for Affliction. Affliction has been modified quite a bit. Number one, the only spenders now for Affliction Warlock is not your Unstable Affliction. It is now your Malfic Ruptures, which pop damage on your target depending on the number of dots on them. So you stack those dots up and they're proccing damage. So that's just something you need to know before we get into the rest of this. Because the big shift is Unstable Affliction. It doesn't use shards. You can see in the top left. Isn't using a shard. I can spam it. If it gets dispelled, I can just reapply it. It's putting dot coverage on your target without making it cost shards, which means you can basically have 100% dot coverage, and you might be able to build that into playing in PvP, your comp, whatever it is, so that all your other dot characters like Shadow Priest, Elemental Shaman, Boomkins, they can get all their dots all the time up there too, and these are the gatekeepers of dots. But what they did is they made Unstable Affliction only limited to one target. See, if I cast it on this target, it will remove it from here. See, now it's over here. They reverted that change, and they actually made it so Unstable Affliction was able to be cast on multiple targets, but they said, actually, you know what? That's not the best. Like, I don't want to have to upkeep all my dots on every single thing and keep Unstable Affliction on every single thing, especially because it's a casted dot. It would take a lot of globals and a lot of time. I already have my Agony, my Corruption, Siphon Life if I want to, and potentially Haunt. And, so there's a lot of globals. We don't want to go global overboard. So that was one of the big changes. The other changes, and I will try to not mess this up. Actually, I'm recording this for the second time because I messed it up before. The other changes... specifically to Unstable Affliction is they said, okay, we'll revert it back to limiting it by one, but actually there's now a PvP talent called Malignant Affliction, which actually makes it so it is not just limited by one. Unstable Affliction is no longer limited to one, but deals 10% less damage. If your Unstable Affliction is dispelled, you instantly gain haste, which is great. This is actually noted here in the developer notes. We want to provide an avenue for Warlocks to be able to protect their dots on multiple targets, particularly for Battlegrounds. This is catering to the casual BGers or even rated BGers, but I do appreciate them doing this. It is something that you get a choice, and I appreciate whenever Blizzard does this. They say, hey, player, you get the choice. Of course, that's just in PvP, but still, let's be honest, stacking Unstables, while that was satisfying when it worked, when it didn't work, it was very depressing. So right now, no matter what, you can't stack Unstables, which was the usual dump of Unstable Affliction. You're only using your shards for Malfic Rupture or for Seed, what is this called? Seed of Corruption. Yeah. So that's that. So that was one big change. Haunt also applying Shadow Embrace. Shadow Embrace is an ability back from the BC days. That's when I was a Warlock, for better or worse back in XLSL days. But this is Shadow Bolt apply Shadow Embrace, increasing your damage dealt to the target by 3% for 12 seconds, stacking up to 3 times, meaning up to 9% additional damage. They're bringing this back on Haunt, making Haunt more desirable because you'll be able to stack that up potentially on your main target, and getting that Shadow Embrace is something that is flavorful. I appreciate that. It's increasing the focus and ability for an Affliction Warlock, even though I'll be dotting multiple targets, to have a greater presence of damage on the target, this main target. So now I can pop Malfic Rupture, and I can pop those dots. The other thing that Haunt does do is it increases the damage dealt to the target by 10%. So again, as it used to do, it makes it so that when you're haunting a target, you're focusing your damage there. As well as if you put your Unstable Affliction, they can't dispel those additional damaging abilities unless it's going to silence the Dispeller. So I do appreciate that. I'm very excited about that. Overall, Affliction Warlock is looking pretty good and a lot different because of the way you're spending your globals. I really do appreciate that, and I'm excited. Very excited for it. One of my most excited classes. One of the things I did not mention was that Demonic Gateway is getting a change. Demonic Gateway is something across all Warlock specs. Where the heck are you? Demonic Gateway. When you put it up, when you die, the gateway won't go away. It will slowly start to decay over time, apparently. Maybe we'll just sit here and go through some of the notes and see if we watch it decay over time. But that's just something where they're saying Warlock's got a lot to do, and as a quality of life, they will just make this persist even after death. That being said, let's go ahead and go down to the PvP talents. We don't see too many changes for PvP talents these days, but let's be honest. This is something that a lot of classes need. We need some life in the PvP talent area. Soul Shatter, that was a PvP talent already, grants soul shards equal to the number of targets hit instead of haste. So instead of getting haste, you get the soul shards. What is Soul Shatter? Soul Shatter consumes all of your corruption effects on the 5 nearest enemies within 40 yards, dealing 10% of their maximum health and shadow damage. Very interesting. Blizzard went with a percentage-based damaging model. A lot of people do not like that. They're not a fans of that, and I'm a little surprised they went this avenue. Greater Pyroblast being what it is, a little sad to me to see that they went this way. I think it's harder to tune. I think it's challenging and can be very frustrating, but it is what it is. So this means if you get dots on, let's say, your corruption on 5 targets near you, you pop Soul Shatter, and then you have another 5 soul shards. Remember, soul shards are still only used, for Malefic Rapture, or Seeds of Corruption. So you can, if you think about it, if you're using this ability to get the shards, why are you doing that? I guess you're doing that to be able to dot things up a little bit more. But again, Unstable doesn't use them. I guess you're going to be using it for Rapture more often. I'm not really sure. That part is a little bit surprising to me. I'm not sure why you would go this and stack soul shards, because you're not really dumping your shards. Is kind of creating some damage, but not too much, right? It's more about keeping your constant pressure up. Malignant Affliction, we already talked about this. I do appreciate them doing that. It's not actually currently implemented in the game, but they do allude to the fact that that's going to happen. So that's cool. Now, next up, that's it for Affliction Warlock. Let's go to the big one, the big news. Everybody is curious. If you play Warlock, or if you go against Warlocks, or if you compete against Warlocks, PvP, PvE, whatever it is, this is the big one. Destruction Warlocks are being modified. Now, I'll put down my Twitter below. There's been a lot of discussion on my Twitter. I put a post on there, and, Featherfeet, who's a very, very, very good PvPer, made a comment about this, but we'll get into it. I think there's just a lot of things to think about. I'm not saying it's going one way or another, but I think there's the potential for Destro to really get the legs kicked out from under him. Number one, let's just go through this. These are some core ability kind of modifications. I'm not sure if they're really that much different. Infernal Awaken, which is when the Infernal drops from the sky, increases damage on the impact. Havoc rank 2. Havoc duration increased by 2. Okay, Rain of Fire increased by 30%. This one's actually going to be important for what we're going to talk about. Next, Soulfire. Soulfire is a 4-second cast. Damage is increased by 100 from 100% spell power to 300% spell power. 1 minute cooldown. Causes your next Incinerate to be instant cast and generate 1 whole soul shard. Developer said that this spell hasn't found a niche as an additional short casted spell, so it's returning it to its long cast so that it can do a lot of damage in the pre-pull opener. Now let's go ahead. Now you might say, like, what is this ability? Soulfire, an OG ability. I think this used to be I don't know. I put down in the comments if you have stories about Soulfire. I'm pretty sure there's some stories. Next, let's just show you what type of damage it does. Basically, what they're saying is you can use this on the countdown to get your long cast that might not be viable in other ways, and you can do pretty big damage. 2k damage. That was a non-crit 2k. 2k is about 20% of a player's health. That is a big damage opener. That was a non-crit as well. If it crits, it's going to do even more, probably close to 4k. That's huge. That's a 3.6 second cast as well. Please remember that. That's like a GPI. That is basically almost a GPI level damage. So keep that in mind, guys. This could be actually, you could see this in the fold. The other thing you want to note here is it's fire damage. Remember that. We're going to get back to that in a little bit, okay? Remember that it's fire damage. All right, next up. I actually think Soulfire is going to be, I think fire damage is going to be the new Destro Warlock. That's my hypothesis for Shadowlands. Next, you'll see why. Shadowburn is now a 1 shard spender. Damage increase to 130% spell power, up from 60, with a 12-second cooldown. Has a 50% chance, increased crit chance on low health targets, generating 1 soul shard if the target dies within 5 seconds. And it's basically saying that it was not exciting as a generator, and now they're turning it into an alternate way to spend shards. So just keep that in mind. Shadow Flame damage, but more of an execute potential, which could be kind of interesting, especially for Destros. Now, similar to its historic design. That's right. Now, next up, Internal Combustion consumes 7 seconds of your immolate, up from 5. This actually takes this. It literally takes the timing of the dot down from whatever it is, -7 seconds now. Cataclysm deals less damage, 20% less spell power damage. That's probably because Cataclysm itself did a ton of damage to the target. I think they're probably ramping this down to make it so it's not just something you use single target as more damage. And then the biggest change. This is what we want to be talking about. Everybody has probably heard of this. Grimoire of Supremacy is being renamed to Reign of Chaos. Grimoire of Supremacy was when you dropped your Infernal. Every time you used a Soul Shard, you had increased damage to your next Cast Bolts, or your certain amount of Cast Bolts while your Infernal is up. That would be something people would roll with Visions of Perfection so that you would get procs of Infernals and BFA. Those you would roll into using your real Infernal. You could get up, just the damage amplification was getting outrageous. That on top of using Dark Soul, that on top of using your Mastery, maxing that out, you could get insane Cast Bolts. That's how people are getting 2-shot with Cast Bolts, doing over 400k damage in 2 globals. It's a pretty absurd, and that's what the developers know. Grimoire Supremacy was too integral to Destruction's damage output, even without Vision of Perfection. It also created unhealthy gameplay in PvP. I'm going to be honest, the fact that they had acknowledged that it's unhealthy gameplay in PvP, that huge spiking damage that's just ridiculous, is sad that Blizzard isn't making a change right now. They're waiting till Shadowlands. I personally think they're acknowledging it, and they need to take action. Why not? There's nothing wrong, and maybe we'll do an entire another video. I don't know why Blizzard's not making a tweak in this regard. Maybe it's because they're lacking mobility, but in Shadowlands, they're definitely going to have mobility with everyone having port and gateway. So keep that in mind. We want this talent to remain powerful and exciting, so instead of ramping Cast Bolt damage, Warlocks can try to maximize the output of the Infernal Spawn. The goal is to provide the same fun. I don't know why they say fun, but okay. I'm sorry that I'm being a little bit toxic, and listen, I respect you Destros out there, okay? It's the bee's knees right now for many ways, for many reasons. But I'm just going to say that 2 global 500k damage on Shadowlands BFA is kind of a meme. Without being too reliant on getting very high modifier on your Cast Bolt. Let's talk about this. Reign of Chaos, let's read through it one more time. When your initial Infernal is active, every Soul Shard you spend is a 15% chance to summon an additional Infernal that lasts 10 seconds. Well, okay, let's think about this a little bit. Okay, so this means I pop my Infernal, and then we're going to drop Rain of Fires. We're going to use Cast Bolts. All of that stuff has a 15% chance per shard. So let's see how it goes. I'll show you what it looks like. I tested this earlier, and I will tell you I tested it 3 times. First time I tested it, I got 0 procs. Second time, third time, I got 1 proc, additional Infernal. So there's 2 running around. The third time I ran it, or the fourth time I ran it, I got 5. So it is definitely RNG, we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, let's go ahead and do this. We're gonna get everything procced up. We're gonna pop Infernal. Rain of Fire. Okay, we got 1. We're gonna go ahead and pop another one. Another one. We have 3 total. We are halfway through the proc. And I know I'm probably not optimally doing this, so main Warlocks are gonna pop up and yell at me. Got 6 seconds left. We saw 3 procs this time. Here we get another one. That's the 4th proc. There it is. There it is, boys. Damn. He's pretty savage. All right, so there it is. I got 4 total procs, and they only last for a little bit of time, but they last 10 seconds, I guess, but it is what it is. Now, that was a pretty good attempt. We'll give it another go. We're going to do one more test of this as well. I want to show you the Reign of Chaos. Here we go. We're going to go ahead and get everything going. We're going to get full shards, and then we're going to drop Infernal. Again, I want to do like 5 tests of this, truthfully. We'll get full shards here. And then we're going to go ahead and drop Infernal. We're going to do it another time because I know it's RNG, so I have to do this a bunch of times to show you the average. But here we go. We're going to drop Infernal. I got the buff. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. I got a proc already. Another one. There we go. Another one. I got to make sure I'm hitting the target. I'll use actually a Cast Bolt for the first time all freaking day. So I've gotten 2 procs so far. We're at 5 seconds left. 2 procs. I'm not getting tons of procs, but I'm getting 2. Okay, that's it. That's it. I got 2 procs there. The last time I got 3. A bunch of times I've gotten 1. A bunch of times I've got 0. So I would definitely say you're going to be capping out your potential at likely 4 is your max. And that's actually a lot, but 10 seconds. You have 10 seconds of that. I'm just saying, I don't think that this is that scary of a thing, but we'll have to see. Oh, but I want to let you know what I did. Maybe you didn't notice this. This was to get as many spending shards as possible. I didn't go the usual build in PvP. In PvP and BFA right now, you're going Cataclysm for that to increase damage AoE. Dark Soul. Dark Soul will increase. Once you get that stacking supremacy up, you use Dark Soul. That increases it further. You start to get that spike of damage. What I did instead is I went Soul Conduit. Every Soul Shard you spend is a 15% chance to be refunded. So that's why I was able to Rain of Fire so many times. I also went Inferno. Rain of Fire damage is increased by 20% and 20% chance to generate a Soul Shard fragment when I cast it. So, or when it's doing damage. So just keep that in mind. Those are the extra things I was doing to get as many kind of shards building up and spending as possible. I want you also to, I personally think this is an interesting situation. And I think Blizzard making changes like this is not a good thing, because Blizzard has done a few things here. Number one is they made the proc chance RNG. It's 15% chance. And so if you have two Warlocks next to each other and they do their full damage rotation with their Infernal, one could get 10 spawning. Let's say they spend 10 shards each. One could get 10 Infernals to spawn, one for each of those shards. One could get 0 additional. Players do not like that. Players do not like the fact that RNG, the roll of the dice, potentially has a role in how they parse in PvE, in how they potentially, the amount of pressure they have in PvP, the fact that they do not have control. People are not that big of a fan. And this always causes problems. A case in point is Boomkins and Shadowlands. Boomkins and Shadowlands, they originally had their Astral Power system using RNG. Your Cast of Wrath had a chance to give you an Astral proc. That was quickly reverted to be you had to cast a certain number of spells, right? So there was a few changes that they've made in this regard because it's not a fun, people don't like it. People don't like the fact that it's RNG. Sometimes, like, you know, Vision of Perfection, which has a chance to give you a proc of an Infernal or something like that, they just do that for just kind of the average. People think about it like an average overall output of a certain trait. But in reality, in PvP and certain PvE situations like Mythic Plus, that RNG is not good. And people do not like it. So I want to just point that out, as that's why I personally think this is a nerf to Destro. I personally think that those Infernals spawning, listen, I understand you might, if I do this again, I could get 1 Infernal running around the whole time with no procs, or I could get 10. But here's the deal. I'm not going to have a banger Chaos Bolt after that. You know what I mean? I'm not going to have that at all. And if I go Dark Soul instability here, I'm not going to be able to get additional shards from more Infernals. So I personally think this is a pretty big nerf, even if they run away from the Infernals. And, you know, I don't know. I just do not, I don't know how to explain this in any other way other than when you saw me dumping shards, I was dumping them with Rain of Fires. I was not dumping them with Cast Bolts. I was not getting thoughtful pressure out, which means that potentially Destros will become a rot-based PvP class where you get those Infernals rolling and you maximize that. I personally do not think that's likely, especially because Summon Infernals a 3-minute cooldown. Basically, now you're saying you have a 3-minute cooldown to just have an RNG chance to do damage. Unlike in PvP today, if my Infernal is going to do rot damage, but then usually there's some way to get a setup, or I have it coil, and that sets me up perfectly to at least get 1 Chaos Bolt out that does massive damage. You no longer have that. You now just have Chaos Bolt doing the exact same amount of damage the entire time. Okay, you still have this 65% increased damage you can go over here, but it's just not there. So I personally think this is a pretty big nerf and quite an RNG play, which I don't think players are going to like at all. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move on. Next, Roaring Blaze, and this is actually the indicator that I think Blizzard is making a change of Destros. Destros are being pushed down the fire damage lane. Chaos Bolt itself, what type of damage is it? It's chaos damage, okay. I think they're pushing Destros to be fire. Now, Roaring Blaze redesign now causes the target to take 30% increased fire damage from a Warlock for 6 seconds. This doesn't affect Chaos Bolt, only pure fire damage spells. We want to try opening up other talent builds that you can work with your fire spells. They basically are saying it out there, right there. So let's go ahead and change everything up. Let's go ahead and rework it all, right? Let's go to Soulfire. Soulfire is a fire-based ability. We're going to go Roaring Blaze. Channel Demon Fire. This is actually doing fire damage as well. So let's take that. Mortal Coil, whatever. This could be potentially good. Incinerate now hits all targets near your enemies near your target, dealing 40% damage and generating 2 Soul Shard. Okay, so that could be for Cleave. That's fine. So I think this is good. Shadow Flame. All right, so now if I want to to do damage, I can go ahead and do this. I can cast my, it's taking now 30% increased damage. I cast Soulfire. Hello, 2.7k non-crit. That is big damn. That is big damn. I personally am thinking that Blizzard is going to have, oh yeah, and look, Cremation. Conflag deals 3% of the target's maximum health. Hello. I think you're looking at the brand new Destro Warlock. We're going fire. That's my thoughts. That's what I think. I want to know what you think. Put it down in the comments below, everybody. This is a big change. I personally believe that that Destros are going to be a different type of caster, and I think one maybe more akin to what they were back in BC. I didn't play much of that. It was the SLSL scrub. But put it down in the comments, guys, and we'll kind of discuss it down there or on stream every day, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. A link down below. Now, let's go to demo. And as I'm switching, I just want to ask you guys, if you guys do enjoy these videos, please, there's 98% of you that have not subscribed to the channel yet. Definitely think about it. If you enjoy this content, if you want to see more, throw a sub down below. Throw a like. I really appreciate it. And let's keep moving on. We're going into demo. Demo Warlocks. Oh, yeah. By the way, Channel Demon Fire, primary damage target up by 10%. Yeah. Demo's getting some changes that I really appreciate. Demo in Legion was one of the most fun classes for me. I had a very, very good time. It was just fun. The rotation was satisfying. The skill cap was high. If you did it right, you got rewarded with big, huge damn. And it felt really good in PvP. In PvE, it had its niche at a certain period of time. BFA kind of had a weird, I think BFA actually was a tough time for a lot of classes. I think a lot of classes had a really tough time with balancing out all the different mini modifications to their class with Azerite traits, with Azerite essences, with corruptions, with all that stuff, trinkets. I think Blizzard is cleaning the slate a little bit. And I think one of the ways they're doing that can be seen through Demo. Demo, we'll just review the changes and I'll kind of review my thoughts, but I'm very excited about this. Number one, summon Demonic Tyrant. Now generates 5 shards when it casts. That's actually awesome to see. So do appreciate that. Thank you, Blizzard. Call Dreadstalkers. Cast time is reduced by 0.5 seconds. They also gain Pursue to close the gap when the target's farther away. Do appreciate that. Quality of life all around. Thank you. Thank you. Wild Imps now spawn more immediately after Hand of Gul'dan, and 2 to 3 Imps spawn in faster succession. In addition, if they path fail, they now teleport to the Warlock. This is actually kind of nice. Previously, Hand of Gul'dan, it took actually like a second or two to make the imps spawn. I don't know why that was. It wasn't really clear to me, but at all. But it is kind of nice to know that they'll spawn faster and they'll pop it right out there. So that's good. And also notes quality of life, preventing your imps to get stuck, right? Next, Wild Imps rank 2, etc. Imp energy cost for Firebolt decreased by 20%. I do appreciate this. This means that the imps are going to do a little bit more damage before despawning. Thank you, Blizzard. Next up, Demonic Consumption no longer sacrifices the imps. Now instead drains 50% of their active damage, active demon's HP, empowering itself based on the HP consumed. This is a nod to Legion, and I do appreciate that. What does that mean? That means once I use Demon Dad, he's going to suck 50% of their health and do additional damage based on that. Then I will also have my imps available to be able to do other things with them. I can then use them as implosion. I can then use them for power siphon. It gives me more options because the number of imps usually dictates the other things that I can do in the game. Next, Power Siphon now also adds 30% damage to your next 2 Demon Bolts. Thank you for the damage, Blizzard. Nether Portal, demons summoned, attack power is increased. Well, I'll show you that. That is really cool. Demonic Calling reduces the shard cost of called Dreadstalkers by 2. We do very much like that. That basically makes them free of charge. No shards required. And then lastly, Inner Demons randomly demons summoned, attack power increase. Let's go ahead and show you what it looks like. Here's the reason why I like this so much. Number 1. They're cleaning things up. They're reducing costs. They're making it so that the Dreadwolves could, oh my gosh, they're not Dreadwolves. Dreadstalkers could potentially be procced based on like Shadow Bolts or Demon Bolts, right? So if I get those procs, it won't cost me any shards, which means I can keep my core rotation going on for Hand of Gul'dads going. Look how, and then the imps pop up really fast. We'll keep it going. There's the proc. I will not spend shards and get my dogs out there. Dogs are going to give me some more shards. Those shards, or sorry, Demon Bolts. Demon Bolt can be used for shards, and then I can get some big burst. Hand of Gul'dad. Hand of Gul'dad twice, and then we'll get out the Demonic Tyrant. Demonic Tyrant gets out. It sucked some of the health of my imps, but I can still implosion them and throw them in there. You know what I'm saying? It still gives me some options, and we do like that very much. So I am actually really excited about this. I think this is a very awesome thing for Demo. Demo, I think, is a very skill cap class, and it's definitely going to be satisfying. I think a little bit more satisfying than BFA. It's not a total rework of the class. Listen, it's not total, but it's enough. I do wish they made Demonic Tyrant way more interesting. I wish he had more abilities like a leap or a stun. Certain things that he would do, like off DR even, or a disorient or something. Like, he's got to be a little bit cooler than just throwing his cannonballs, you know what I mean? And then last thing I'll show you is the Nether Portal. Nether Portal, I throw it down. I actually think this will be used. You drop this and you start dumping. Some shards every time you spend a shard. It basically is giving you another demon out of there, which is actually really cool. I do appreciate that. So we're just gonna spend shards. Oh, closed. Unfortunate. I didn't quite get the procs. I didn't quite set it up, and Demo is definitely all about the setup, so that's okay. But I definitely like what the direction they're going. I think that if they're not going to be reworking things, if they're not going to be totally giving Demo form and certain other things, I think this is at least some quality of life improvements that we definitely do like. I also do have a slow now, which is kind of funny. I think it's kind of OP, the fact that I can put slows on them, but that's quite all right. That was also a change. Yeah, and the cast time of pets is like 5.5 seconds, which is a freaking meme. But you know what it is, I was actually just trying to see if Doom was still here. I think they definitely, yeah, they reworked that as well. And I saw that in the patch notes. But with that being said, guys, I just wanted to give a quick shout out. Thank you guys so much for the love. Thanks you so much for the support. Testing these classes out has been really fun. And let me know on the stream. We stream every day, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, except for Sundays at twitch.tv/tiqqle this. And with that being said, guys, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.